road to Pyeongchang continues at the 2010 Winter Olympic venue. It's race 3 of the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup, and we are in Whistler in British Columbia, the fastest ice on the planet. Hello everybody, welcome to Whistler wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. I'm Martin Haven. Alongside me is Canadian skeleton athlete Liz Vache. You raced on this track yesterday, Liz. It's been a pretty wet week, but this track is still a huge demand for any athlete.
Yeah, it's the fastest track in the world, which is super exciting. Yesterday it was hard and it was fast and it was definitely track record ice, and I'm looking forward to seeing that again today. The track workers are incredible here and they've been putting the track to amazing shape. It's a really quick start and you got to run and get on really fast, and you get ready for a quick right-hand corner, and as you get ready for that, you get on and off and you get ready for a 2-story drop as you head into corner 3, and you start picking up speed immediately on this track. You don't really walk into it, you just go in head first and as fast as you possibly can. Corner 5 is a really quick left-hand turn before a really big corner 6 where you start to see a little bit of action, some flops, some hits. Into corner 7 is a big right-hand turn, and you're going to see some more hits and skids out of this corner as it's a fake straightaway. Into quick 2 left curves and then a big corner 11. A lot of people get a little bit of height on the exit of here and they hit into corner 12, and that makes the pain train into Hokies 50-50. A little bit of hits and skids here really kills your time. And this is corner 15 where we get the top speed of the track, where athletes will be going over 140 kilometers an hour. There'll be some hits on the exit of 16 as you head to the finish line.
You have to talk down it so fast. It's such a quick track, isn't it? 16 corners and not one of them is straightforward. Thomas Dukurs is the man who holds the outright track record. It has been fast in yesterday's racing, and the start record held by Alexander Tretiakov. That may not come under challenge. Sung Jung of Korea, the winner last week, and the winner here last year, is our World Cup points leader, tied with Martins Dukurs. Axel Jungk of Germany in 3rd place, ahead of Tretiakov, Dukurs and Tregebov. And we have a big field here today, 30 athletes going into the first of our 2 heats, the fastest 20 of whom go through into the 2nd run. Well, now there's something that we hadn't seen up until this stage, a Chinese athlete on the World Cup in the season, and he has joined for the first time. Jung of China, and also from the Ukraine. Long time since we've had even occasional Ukrainian representation, and the Ukraine been very well represented so far. Well, lots of different nations coming in this pre-Olympic season, and we have 2 Australians in the first 3 sleds. The twin brothers Nick and Dean Timmings will both be racing here. 30 sleds all the way down to Hiro Takahashi and Ronald Odderset. And of course they all start with an equal chance. In the 2nd heat though, the 1st heat also counts, so you go in reverse order from 20 down to 1. And after the first 5, which are drawn from 15th and below in the World Cup standings, we get into the top 10 in the world, and then we go on through, down through the rest of them, ranked in their World Cup order.
Yeah, we can be looking for a really fast track today. Let's see what Dean Timmings is going to do. Yeah, let's see what his start is.
Race 3 of the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup. Dean Timmings makes his 6th career World Cup start, his 1st of the season, to get our race underway.
Here Dean Timmings goes, loading onto the sled super quietly, and you want to do that in Whistler because the grooves can kind of be a little bit crazy. Nice early entrance into corner 1, a bit of a skid in the exit of corner 1 as he heads into corner 2. Nice, and
we see a good shine on the track. It's been spritzed overnight. Lots of work by the track crew after a host of crashes in the bobsleigh races yesterday evening, but it looks in great condition.
A little bit of extra height on the exit of 6 as he skids onto corner 7. Let's see how his exit is. He cleans it up nicely.
Now, do you have the same problem areas in a skeleton that the bobsledders do, or is the weight thing a different issue?
It's a little bit different in bobsled. Bobsled really struggles 12, 13, 14. We take a bit of hits, but they're easy to dump there, where corner 6 is a bit trickier for us.
You see the hit there early on as ripped his vest down over his shoulder. And Nick Timmings, this long uphill run to the line must be the longest on the planet, where you come out of the final corner and the finish line is still over 100 meters away.
Yeah, it's really unique because there's often you take that hit out of corner 16 and you have to still relax on your sled, counter, and figure that out so you're not skidding across the finish line and killing your speed.
Well, hammers his sled. Not sure if he was delighted or disgusted with that one. We'll wait and see.
A lot of height on the exit of corner 6, and he flops and almost hits again on the right-hand wall. Big skid. Huge height in corner 9 and hits that left wall. We'll see a couple athletes get close, but not quite like that.
All right, so Dean Timmings sets the pace of 54.77. That's 2.66 seconds off the all-time record. How close we get to that, we'll have to wait and find out. Next up, 24-year-old Riet Graf from Switzerland, his 8th World Cup start. So all these athletes coming up early, relatively inexperienced in the World Cup.
Riet Graf spent a little bit of time here in the ICC and NAC circuit at the start of the season, kind of getting a little bit familiar again with this track. 75 start, that's good for him.
So what about this track? Because it has got a fearsome reputation because of the speed. Is that always an issue with the athletes?
Yeah, I think we're just not used to having a track this quick. Getting close to 140 kilometers an hour, it's a bit of fear, and corner 6 is a bit hairy. It's a lot of height. He's going to have a bit on the exit as well. So you just kind of got used to getting on your bumpers and using your toes, which we don't necessarily have to do on other tracks.
1800s in the lead over Dean Timmings at the moment, and of course the more athletes you can put behind you with your first run, the greater chance you have of making the second heat. Couple of very substantial bumps and you kind of end up with black and blue shoulders, elbows, arms, everything.
Yes, I definitely have a black and blue leg right now. That's a big hit out of 16, but he holds it to the finish line 4700s ahead, and that was a pretty hairy run at the bottom, but pretty quick.
He made his World Cup debut in Altenburg in Germany last year. Didn't do the North American World Cup races. Again, you can see the vest just pulled down by the ice. When you're doing that sort of speed, it has a very significant braking effect when you hit it as well.
Yeah, a lot of height here on the exit of 6 again. A bit of a flop. We're going to see that tons today. A little hit into 7, tons of height here on the exit of 12 as he hits into 13, trying to get back focused for the end of the run.
So Riet Graf is the leader from Dean Timmings. Next up, 26-year-old Australian Nick Timmings, the twin brothers, both making their 6th World Cup start. They've flip-flopped sort of between races together. It's very occasionally, I think the only race we've seen them together may have been one time together on the same card. Neither brother has made a top 20 finish yet in the World Cup, so who knows, this might be the day.
Yeah, it's awesome to see Australia have 3 competitive men on the World Cup circuit and have 2 spots. That's really exciting to see for the sport. Nice entry into corner 1, no real skid until the straightaway. Really relaxing into the track.
Well, yesterday we saw Jacqueline Lerling winning the women's race. The first race was pretty neat and tidy. The second one, more hits than Elvis. I mean, if you took the clock away, you'd think it's a rookie. How do you manage to keep speed up and hit the walls?
Honestly, if you relax into some of your hits, it doesn't hurt you as much as you think. When you're tense on your sled, sometimes when you take the hit, it skids and then you're really stuck. But Lerling's able to find the speed like no other.
So you just embrace the fear. Okay, that's quite weird. Nick Timmings into the lead over Riet Graf at the moment. And this is actually a nice, neat-looking line.
Yeah, he actually got through kind of 12, 13, 14 pretty cleanly, and that's a really good run for him. He should be pretty happy with that.
Wow, 53.72. That's impressive. And this might be the day where he makes the top 20 for the first time in his short World Cup career. 2 brothers from Perth in Western Australia. Yeah, they're going to be the colour of the race suit, aren't they? Black, yellow, orange, green, all of that.
Exactly. A lot of height here on at the exit of corner 6. A bit of a flop, and he relaxes pretty okay actually into corner 7. And then again, 12, 13, hitting on that left wall, and that hurts.
Helmet reminds me a little bit of John Fairbairn, who used to have that radioactive brain on his helmet. Hey, John, wherever you are. 27-year-old Jack Thomas next up. 12th World Cup start for him. Again, made his debut at the end of the previous season to last year and has been a World Cup competitor since.
Yeah, Jack Thomas last time he was here had an unlucky groove pop and fought his way the rest of the way down the track. Nice load onto the sled, getting ready for this run.
Yeah, he was 25th here in last year's race, which is something that he will not want to repeat. 461 is a good getaway.
Beautiful entry into corner 2. Little tap on the right wall into corner 3.
Well, he needs a break here, doesn't he? He was 28th in Lake Placid. It was a disaster. 25th in Park City. He didn't go an awful lot better. Really good run here will certainly help.
A little bit of a tap into corner 7, but he really relaxed out of corner 6, and that'll really benefit him.
The youngest slider in the women's field, Ashley Pittaway of Great Britain, made her first cut yesterday when Olympic champion Lizzie Arnold didn't. So it was a topsy-turvy day. Do we expect the same today?
Yeah, I think it'll be another interesting race. The ice is a little bit different than training, a little bit harder, a little bit quicker, and I think that's why we're seeing what we're seeing in the exit of corner 6 and even in the pain train at the bottom of the track.
He took a gentle hit off 16, but then dragged a little up the wall, 53.64. So that puts him 800s ahead of Nick Timmins. Now, he would expect it of himself, I think, to be a little further up, so I don't think he'll be overjoyed with that, but if he makes the cut, then that's going to be a big step forward. And of course, in the second heat, then you've got a chance to improve.
Yeah, you can see that athlete bumping a little bit on the entry of corner 11, tons of height on the exit, and you're just doing everything to prevent that hit. Hits on the entry of 12, and then you hit on the entry of 13, and that's what I call the pain train, and it does hurt, and you're just trying to get back focused.
Well, Jack, like everybody else, heading back to Europe in the next couple of days. There's a week of rest before we go to Winterberg in Germany. Next up, Alex Hansen, the 30-year-old from Norway. Third ever World Cup start. All of them have come this season.
Alex Hansen has a beautiful helmet made by a Calgary artist, Jabo. He does incredible work. His dad's here today as well, Alex's dad, to watch the race.
Now, there were 2 Olympic champions in the women's field yesterday. One of them was his teammate, Maja Pedersen. She didn't make the cut either. And I'm not sure that anybody's ever said that sentence. Neither Olympic champion in the field made the cut.
4:58, that was an awesome start from Alex. Let's see how far he can carry that down the track, just relaxing into this track. He's had lots of runs here. He foreran the Canadian selection races at the start of the season. He's working with Kristen Bromley, and that's been working very, very well for him.
26th in Lake Placid, 31st in Park City, so yet to make the cut, but as you say, he spent an awful lot of time on ice here in North America, so hopefully third will be the magic one. 2100s in front, easing away from Jack Thomas.
And 128 kilometers an hour out of corner 11, that's an incredible speed. And he's able, big hit coming out of 16, but he keeps it going relatively straight, 6900s ahead, that's awesome.
There's Snorre Pedersen, his coach, and 52.95, that, I think, may well put him into the second heat for the first time in his career. There's Kristen Bromley, medalist on this track. Back in 2010-11, the post-Olympic race, he took the silver medal.
Lots of height again here on the exit of 6, but again, he has a little bit of a jump, but relaxes into corner 7 and keeps pushing the speed. Huge height on the exit of corner 6. A little bit of a bump, but keeps his form together and heads towards the finish line.
Yeah, not bad run at all from Alex Hansen. Third might just be the charm to get him into the race. Well, there is the start, and there is the ranking so far. Alex Hansen of Norway, the leader, 5 down, 25 to go, and only 15 spots available still in the race. So next up is the 6th of our starters. We now get into the top 10 in the World Cup rankings with Germany's Alexander Gassner, 18th in Lake Placid, a long way from where he wanted to be, but 7th place last week in Park City, a much better recovery. Made his World Cup debut back in December 2011, then spent 2 seasons away before coming back at the beginning of last year, refinding his form, and he's been a factor in the German team ever since.
Yeah, he was fighting to kind of get his start back in a 66. I think he'll be very, very happy with that start. He's from Winterberg, Germany, so we head to his home track next, and that's really exciting.
His best ever result, 3rd placed in Koenigsegg last season. He also fared well in the World Championships, got the team's bronze medal. Not for Germany, but for a mixed team.
Yeah, he's having a really good run here, too. The Germans are very good on this track. They've won Olympic medals, they've won World Cup medals, and it's cool to see this next generation also accelerating on this track.
Well, he is doing an exceptional job of avoiding the walls so far. What a really good-looking run from Alexander Gassner. And this is a little bit like we saw from Jacqueline Lerling in the first heat. Neat, tidy, clinically precise. Then she got a rock and roll on us in the second.
He had 129.8 kilometers an hour out of corner 11, and that's massive speed. That's 1.8 kilometers faster than Alex Hansen, and that's really good to see at the bottom of the track. Well,
24th World Cup start for Alexander Gassner, and he is the leader by 3,400. Speed at the bottom, 89.5 miles an hour. Just think about that. Do that speed on the highway, and then get out of the car and rest your chin on the road, and then imagine how fast that feels. And the thing with sliding like this, with your head out front, is if you're doing 10Ks and then you put your head in front of your hands, you suddenly feel like you're doing 20. I have no idea what nearly 90 miles an hour feels like with the melon out the front going, no, 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 don't do this.
Most athletes' heads are probably dragging on the ice in corner 16 because we can't keep it off the ice.
Yeah. Fifth in the World Cup standings is Thomas Dukurs. Now 36-year-old, the older of the two brothers, claimed the silver medal here 2 years ago. It was a family 1-2.
And he also is the track record holder. So let's see what he can do here.
Well, that was that second run. It was absolutely smoking. It brought him right up into the silver medal. Threatened brother Martins for a long while.
And again, he's having a great start to his run. Clean, parallel lines, and that's what you'd like to see on the top of the track.
And again, the Dukurs brothers really maintain their form superbly. Look at that. Apparently you don't have to hit the wall out of 6 or flop.
I guess so. That was a nice clean line. A little bit of a flop out of corner 7, but really out of 6, that was beautiful.
And the first slider we've seen on the right dropping into corner 9, which is the line that's so hard to get.
Yeah, you need a little bit of extra height on corner 7 to be able to go that straightaway, or the fake straightaway in my opinion. 600s
to 1300s in front. Oh, big oscillations in 16 now. He was way up early in Thunderbird. And a hit on the wall, 52.64, so he lies second to Alexander Gassner. Well, the man who's had most wins on this track is Canada's John Montgomery. He won the pre-Olympic race, he won the Olympics, and he won the season after. And he's in the booth next door calling this race for CBC, the Canadian broadcaster, so I'm not sure what he'll make of this.
Little bit of extra height there, but it actually puts him so nicely into corner 9, and that's really what you want, to be nice and parallel. Lot of height on the exit of 16 and a hit and then a massive skid. He's not quite able to get it parallel until about there.
All right, so no new track record for Thomas Dukurs. Set it in January 2016, last season's race. And of course, we're back here in February 2019 for 2 weeks for the World Championships. We're starting to save already. Nikita Trekibov, 22-year-old Russian. Best here, 5th place in last year's race. He's had 4 bronze medals in the World Cup. And since he made his debut in January 2015, this kid has never been out of the top 10. In fact, his 2 worst results have been 10th. Other than that, mostly in the top 4.
A 58, that ties Alex Hansen's start, and that's, again, an awesome start, an awesome getaway. He's only 22 years old, which is really cool to see as well.
Yeah, terrifying speed already. Still a 10th away from the all-time start record, but we'll wait and see what happens with that.
Nice low line, a little bit of a flop, but it's okay. Keeps composed and ready for this fake straightaway.
And you see the big difference between entering 9 on the high side and dropping into the ditch on the low side.
A little bit of height on the exit of 11, but fixes it nicely and doesn't hit the 12.13.
129.7, 80.6 miles an hour, a little slower than Dukurs. Now, if he gets a nice level line through Thunderbird, he gets a decent exit. That'll be the leader at the line.
And great speed, 144.4 kilometers an hour. That's awesome to see. Just a tiny hit in comparison to what we've seen so far. But yeah, he should be pretty content with that run.
Well, Dukurs half a mile an hour faster. Maybe that's why he shot up almost to the roof in 16, just going a little quicker. We talked about this before we came on air. You know, it was rainy and soft in training. It's ice and hard and fast today in the race.
Yeah, I think some of the athletes might have the kit prepared for what it was in training, and it was a little bit warmer, it was a little bit softer, and once it's race day, it's hard and it's fast here.
You see the skids breaking out as well, and that's all part of it. You don't have the control that you did in training. So some of the steers just don't work quite the same. Big skid there and working all of his legs to try and hold it together. There's Nikita Tregibov, your race leader. Our 9th sled on ice of 30 this morning is Matt Antoine of the USA. Matt now 32 years old, bronze medalist here last year, bronze medalist in the Sochi Olympic Games in 2014, and starting to find that speed again at the start, which has been so lacking in the post-Olympic cycle.
Yeah, he had surgery right after the Olympics, and he's been fighting to get that back, but he's got one of the nicest loads onto the sled and really accelerates the speed there.
So 4:62, and that's probably a tenth quicker than he was doing at this time last year.
Yeah, he really likes this track. He was a bronze medalist here last year, coming up from, I think he was in 6th or 7th place, and really accelerated on that second run.
I don't think there's many people outside of Canada that would call this their favourite track, but I was talking to the Skeleton Junior World Champion yesterday, and Julia Kanakina was saying, yeah, here and Altenburg, her favourite tracks. You know, those are the two ones that have that ooh moment when you get to them.
A bit of a cringe-worthy moment for sure when you get here, but I think if you just love this speed and kind of like get what you need to do on this track, you really enjoy it.
Yeah. Racers love speed, don't they? Matt Antoine, 1500s back, right in the mix with Nikita Tregibov. And so not a bad looking run, not too loose and not too much contact with the wall. So has he gone a little conservative with the setup to give him enough control to not really have the big errors and then maybe try and free it up a bit for the second heat? Is that a tactic that might work?
I think that is definitely a tactic that might work, because he could increase the rock in his runners and go a little bit, go for broke on the second run and see what he can do. Just get that confidence in that first run, definitely a strategy.
Well, there's a look at the runners. They're rounded steel runners, and they're not flat on the ice like an ice skate. The little tower in the middle of the runner is adjustable, and it's like a rocking chair. It bows underneath you, and so you have a very small contact patch that you rock back and forwards on to help you steer or to give you better speed. This is Christopher Grohe of Germany, 10th of our starters. Winner in Altenburg last year, so he doesn't mind a track where you have to work hard and take the odd risk.
Bit of a bumpy load there, but that seemed to be okay. A 65 start, that's really good.
This is only his 3rd time on the track, but again, if you've got enough to get you down Altenburg into a gold medal, you can't be too scared of this place.
And I think that's really cool with the Germans, is they come here and they're confident. They go to every track and they're confident, and that's not something you necessarily see with every nation.
Well, they've got a big setup and loads of coaching experience, and that helps, doesn't it? The knowledge input.
A couple of bumps there on the left-hand side, but he recovers very nicely.
1800s back, the gap is growing, but he's in the top 5 on the splits at the moment.
A little bit of a skid, exit 11, but he recovers very good.
The speed there as good as Thomas Dukurs, so is he going to find something here at the bottom? How close will it be? Just a little hit on the wall. He just 2 tenths behind. That's not bad. 52.64, exactly the same time as Thomas Dukurs.
And just 300s behind his teammate as well.
Yeah. So Alexander Gassner, the better of the 2 Germans that are down at the moment. Nikita Tregibov still with the fastest time on the ice so far. Lot of sleds still to come. 10 down, 20 more in this heat, and then 20 in the second.
He has a little bit of extra height on the exit of corner 7 and a bit of a flop. You can kind of see the slider bounce, hits left and tries to save it, and just nicks the left wall into corner 9 again.
10 sleds down, 8 different nations in the top 10, but only because we've had 2 Germans and 2 Aussies. Nikita Tregibov leads the early stages of the first heat. 11th of our sliders has been one of the surprises of the season. Actually, one of the surprises of last season was how Wenshan Jung went in the World Championships. Just missed the final run with a 21st place, his first time at Koenigsegg. And the 22-year-old from China started his first ever World Cup race in Lake Placid and finished it with a 7th place run. So coming in like that, suddenly, is he going to find huge expectations of him?
I think he will have a little bit of expectations from him. He's coached by both Jeff Payne and Willie Schneider, and that's quite an amazing duo to have behind you. It sets him up well.
Yeah, Jeff Payne, the bronze medalist here in the pre-Olympic race, and of course, silver medalist in the games as well in Torino. And Willie Schneider is here this weekend. He was here in the North American Cup and ICC weekend when Jeff was doing the World Cup.
You can see that this slider's skidding a little bit and just not quite comfortable on his kit here, but that happens when you don't have too many runs, and it's really hard to find the speed.
Yeah, he hasn't got a lot of trips down this track either. We're in Calgary, he'd be more familiar. Big panic steering there in Thunderbird. You saw, I don't think I've seen an athlete's legs as far apart as that in a long while.
Yeah, it's just the fear of that hit on the exit, and if you're not quite sure on your entrance into corner 16, sometimes that's what you have to do. You drop both toes and hope for the best.
6 runs in training and hopefully 2 competition runs, and that's you for the year. Imagine saying to an IndyCar driver, okay, you've got 6 laps of Indianapolis and then 2 single lap runs, and that decides who wins the Indy 500. That's the kind of pressure these guys are under.
This athlete is actually really incredible. He so understands the driving part of skeleton, and that's a hard thing to learn in a very short period of time. You see both toes kind of dropping, trying to prevent the height, but just can't quite get it on the end.
So not a bad run all the same. If he doesn't make the cut here, that's probably not a surprise. Only his 3rd World Cup race, only his 3rd year of sliding, so he's done very few runs at all. On the other end of that scale is Martins Dukurs, the 33-year-old. Last time this man was out of the top 10 was Park City in 2009.
He's an incredible pilot, and we've seen that for so many years. He just has such an amazing flow with the track and his equipment and his sled.
49 World Cup wins. He was denied a 50th last week by Sunbin Jung of Korea. He has won twice on this track, won 2 years ago and 4 years ago, but we've had 3 different winners on this track in the last 3 races.
It's a bit of a battle royale between him and Sunbin Yoon, and it's really cool to see Yoon be competing against him and fighting for those podiums.
Well, listen, you've had victory on this track. Is it one of those things as a Canadian that's really important to have a home win?
Yeah, especially on this track because it is so difficult. Oh, a little bit of a flop there. There's the pain drain for you.
600's back. It's unusual to see him in the red. 1900's back.
He's 4 kilometers slower than the other athletes as well.
87 miles an hour compared to 90 that his brother produced. Now, last year they threw away the first half-dozen World Cup races, testing equipment and different sleds. I was talking to Richard Bromley last weekend. He said, yeah, we were just watching last year as they tried different sled after different sled after different sled. Bit of experimenting, perhaps.
And I think you always have to be doing that in the sport. Tons of height, and he's going to hit on the left-hand side. Puts him so late into Hokies 50-50. So much height into 14. Huge hit.
Well, he's 1200s ahead of Alex Hansen, which normally would make Hansen 2nd or 3rd. At the moment, Martins Dukurs, Thomas Dukurs, 4th and 6th.
He's not going to be too happy with the run, but he'll come back in the 2nd fighting. We know that. We've seen that with him before.
Yeah, the chances are that won't be an Olympic champion who doesn't get a 2nd heat. Little bit of drizzle at the start. We were expecting it to rain today, and unfortunately it hasn't disappointed us, or perhaps rather it has. 26-year-old Axel Jungk, 27th World Cup start. He has never finished out of the top 10.
Oh, there's a groove pop. Oh, it was moving a little bit when he was running. The sled was moving left and right. He recovered incredibly well and still pushed a 58.
Well, he's coming into this season again fitter, he says, than he has felt in years. Maybe that never out of the top 10 comment was the jinx.
Yeah, sometimes the announcer's jinx happens. A little bit of height. He's going to have a bit of a flop there. Going to have lots of height on the exit here too.
Listen, you run like a maniac, and then you have to be some sort of Zen Buddhist to control the sled. How hard is it? You stepped on the sled yesterday. How hard is it to forget that and really focus?
I I think especially on this track, regardless of your start, you have the ability to drive up. And I was like, well, crap, that happened. Okay, let's focus. Let's keep going. Let's get the speed at the bottom of the track.
And presumably you accelerate so fast in the first couple of corners, it gets your attention anyway.
Yeah, you have to be focused.
Right, 53.28. Axel, I'm very sorry about that. Only 8th fastest off what was still the second quickest run. Bronze medalist last weekend. And I'm afraid that he, as you can imagine, is very, very upset with the start. And here it is.
Incredibly upset. You can see the sled starting to move to side already. And just when he jumped on, must have been a little bit shallow. He saves it remarkably well and gets relaxed on his sled.
Well, we're talking before the race here. When it rains a lot, the grooves start to wash away, but it hasn't rained a lot yet. Maybe the groove is a little shallow.
A little bit of height on the exit of 11, but it's hard to relax after that kind of start.
Oh boy, well, if he makes the second heat, he's got a lot of ground to make up. Winner last week, winner last year on this track, Jung, Korea, the 23-year-old. Busted out a whole different selection of minor improvements on the Bromley sled last week, and Richard Bromley was saying afterwards that they've tried various different elements but never all together, and that was part of the big difference. But he said that the thing is, Jung gets it, and he can handle everything that they give him.
Jung is an incredible pilot, and again, he just has the feel for the sled, and he's been able to work very well with Richard Bromley. They've been working hard to find an incredible sled that will work very well for Jung, being a little bit of a bigger athlete.
Well, what pressure will he feel as we get into the new year? We're already 90 days out from Pyeongchang, and the clock is counting, and there's no question he's going to be in the focus. But look at the speed. He's as smooth as a Dukurs, and he's as quick. He is rocketing away.
3800s ahead. That's incredible. 145.4 kilometers an hour. Track record! Yeah, that's awesome to see. It's really cool that this is Olympic season. On it, they'll be going to his home track, and there he lays down a track record for the second week in a row.
Yeah. Absolutely awesome run. A 52.11 becomes a 51.99. 0.12 of a second quicker. Jung of Korea made that look very straightforward, and there is the genius, and that's what Martins Dukurs has been doing for a decade, is making all of this look really easy.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see Jung now on this new sled. He's gotten better on his load as well into the sled. He's a lot quieter than he has been in the past. Look at him, just relaxes right into it, getting ready for this track record run.
Phenomenal stuff from Jung of Korea. He is looking for his third podium of the season, his second straight win, the World Cup leader in the yellow jersey. Well, there is Janine Flock of Austria watching boyfriend Matthias Guggenberger. Gugi, 33 years old. Last couple of races here, 2 years ago he was 11th. Last year, really not fit again, 26th, missed the cut.
And Matthias had knee surgery at the start of the off-season, so he's really, again, working hard to get that start back, but he's back to being competitive and on a sled he created himself.
Well, that's interesting. You know, John Montgomery tried that after the games, and eventually, in the end, it just frustrated him so much he went off to do other things. But if you can make it work, it's a fantastic advantage.
Yeah, and I mean, because we're athletes and we're on the sled all the time, you kind of have these ideas always running through your head. And I think it's cool, like we said with Jung earlier, he's able to explain those to Richard, and then he goes and builds it.
Well, you say all the time, you'll have spent less than 8 minutes on the ice on your sled this week.
Yeah, but we do lay on our sleds a lot. And it's always these fun ideas. What can we do better? How can we be faster? How can we be breaking track records?
And I guess the deal is you want it to be like a sneaker or a running shoe rather than a big clumpy boot that fits all sizes.
Yeah, exactly. And it needs to be best for the athlete. And the athlete usually has a pretty good idea on what's good for themselves.
52.95 run, 8th place for Matthias Guggenberger. That puts him right behind Martins Dukurs and tied with Alex Hansen. Axel Jungk now in 10th place after his disappointing start. Well, Gugi shaking his head a bit, lots to work on perhaps in the second heat. Don't think anybody really often gets off this track overjoyed.
Yeah, sometimes when you take those hits, it's really frustrating because you know there's speed killers. It's going to take a little bit of a tap on the left-hand side right before corner 9. That's not a fun hit to take.
We talk about it being a little tap, but to kick that much ice out of the wall will probably break your toe, so there's that. Sunbin Jung of Korea leads from Nikita Tregobov and Matt Antoine with 15 sleds down.
Ji-soo is another young athlete for Korea, and he's coming up, and he is an incredible starter, and looking forward to this run.
Halfway through the second group of athletes, 15 out of 30 done. This is Kim Ji-soo of Korea, 23-year-old, making only his 4th ever World Cup start. His best result so far, 11th. That came last week in Park City. So the Koreans kind of use this as a home base a little bit, don't they? Always have done.
Yeah, for some reason they always kind of come back to Whistler. Whistler and Calgary, they've spent a lot of time, and so they know this track very well.
I guess the West Coast is close to them, and look considerably closer than Europe. 1400 back from his teammate.
Oh, lots of height here in the middle of 7. Fixed it pretty good, actually, on the exit.
Well, he's sort of the next generation. He's barely any younger at all than Sunbin Jung, but he's coming in, you know, a little behind, so he's got lots to learn still.
Yeah, and he was a bit of a surprise to be on World Cup. Hansen Lee has a back injury that's kind of sidelined him, unfortunately, this year. Tons of height and a massive hit again on the exit of 16.
Yes, exactly. Hansen didn't get a chance to compete in their national trials. And yeah, his vest pulled off on both arms during that run. So Ji-soo Kim sort of thrown into the spotlight in the World Cup. And, you know, well, in this sport, there's never a right time, is there? The right time is always now or yesterday. So just get in and get it done.
A little bit of extra height on the exit of corner 6 and a bump on the sliders left-hand side sends him to the roof. Into 16, he's quite late, again, to the roof. And he's going to do his best to not take that hit. But it's just too much, and you just can't control it at that point.
So Ji-soo Kim in 11th place, ahead of Jack Thomas, Nick Timmings. Next up is Canada Dave. That's a lot easier to say than Dave Greszczyszyn. I don't see what the problem with Greszczyszyn is. Greszczyszyn's quite an easy name to
Rhymes
say.
with musician, according to his mom, but not
not the way we pronounce
yeah, I
it.
guess.
Similar rhythm, perhaps. 38-year-old got married during the summer. Now, talk about the Sate sleds. Lots of Canadians athletes use them for years, and he's one of the last few that still has a Sate sled, right?
He's actually switched to a Schneider sled. He switched halfway through the season last year, and he's been able to start to get those top 10 results again that we do expect from Dave. He's got a beautifully painted helmet that's a grizzly bear because his name is Greszczyszyn, so he goes by Grizz, and that's a much easier thing to call him than Greszczyszyn.
Yeah, 2 of our 3 Canadians with bears on the helmet. It is kind of a national symbol anyway, so that works.
Dave is laying down a very nice run. 131.4 kilometers out of corner 11 is really great. Now
he started 11th. He's up into 7th on the splits. I'm not going to say too much just yet. He's up into 4th place on the splits. And an exit from 16. It's 3. Okay, I was about to bust out my facts about Grizz here, which is that 2 years ago he finished in 5th spot in Whistler. And, well, not going to get many marks for the dismount. Hopefully he'll be okay. But he'll get tons of marks for that run. His wife is here, and that's super exciting for her to be able to see that beautiful run.
Love you, buddy. Mom, yours is next run.
Lots of love to his mom back home.
And there's that helmet that the photographers just love, because basically it's a bear sliding down the ice towards you.
And he's about as big as a bear, too.
Yes, he is. Big and huggy. Oh, realizes at the last minute that he's a little bit exposed.
Not quite ready to hit that foam, but he'll rub it off and get ready for the second.
In training, our track announcers were saying how fast the outrun was. Please use your brakes, skeleton athletes. And somebody said to me, my brakes are my shoes, and they're $260 a pair. I'm not using them. Next up is our next Canadian, 24-year-old Kevin Boyer. Only his 10th World Cup start. Kevin joined the circus last year. Mum and Dad are here this weekend to watch him race.
A 56. He's going to be stoked on that start. It's really getting close to the Canadian start record, which I'm not quite sure what it is, but he also owns that as well.
So 10th faster than Grizz at the start, and that's a really good getaway.
Kevin Boyer, Mimi, and I spent a month here 2 years ago just trying to learn the track and get better here.
So Bill and Mark watching trackside. They've been here all week in the rain and the drizzle, watching the boy. And from the third fastest start, slipped in the other direction out to 11th on the splits. He's looking a little wilder than Grizz's ride. Maybe he's gone a little more aggressive with his setup.
Yeah, he was a little bit loose on the top of the track, but that's a nice exit out of 16.
All right, top 12. That should see him into the second heat at the very least. And room for improvement.
Definite room for improvement. He'll be a little bit bummed, I think, with the run, but there's always room for improvement, and he should be happy with that.
Well, one World Cup race here in his career. That was his debut. It was the opening race of last season, 17th place. So he'll be trying to improve on that. And another great-looking helmet. Very different style, that West Coast native art on his helmet.
A little bit of extra height and just a tiny bump on the sliders left just a little bit too early. He recovers well, though, and gets himself back for the next curve. So the reason why Kevin has the native art is because he is Métis, which is, he's part native.
Rhys Thornberry of New Zealand works for the Royal Air Force in Bryce Norton in Oxfordshire, representing New Zealand. And his second full season on the World Cup. There's the fern that is the national symbol of the land of the long white cloud. Lots and lots of very small little white clouds on the helmet as well.
Rhys also has improved a lot on his start, and his wife is also here too. He got married. It's a tiny groove pop, but it was okay.
It wobbled wildly underneath him, but at least he managed to get himself into the saddle between those two handles quite neatly.
Yeah, and he was able to recover very, very well.
Now, what you see often from Rhys is the elbows come out, which you don't see from many other sliders.
Yeah, I think it's the way, I guess his shoulders probably aren't the way his sled is. A little bit of a flop there on the exit of corner 6.
Well, he's one of the group of athletes that's coached by Martin Rettel, in addition to Martin's duties with the Austrian team. And they've all sort of knit together, and that they've all improved enormously as a result.
Yeah, it's kind of a really cool opportunity for them to have this team of small nations. I get to be in a team, but these guys now have this created team.
Yeah, a couple of Spaniards, Belgians, Kiwis, all sorts, all joining together. So you're not a team of one anymore. 9th place run. Well, given that start, yeah, no wonder Martin's happy with that.
Martin's hat says BAST, and that's the name of their team that they've kind of created for themselves.
So Rhys Thornberry will be still frustrated by that start.
Yeah, he popped the groove last year too, so again he'll be looking to improve on that. It's a little bit wiggly up there. You can see just as he lets go, tiny pop, almost gets it back in and not quite, but is relaxed enough to take it into corner 1.
Yeah, at least he was still on the sled when it popped out. Again, big flop off 6. Rhys Thornberry lying in 9th place ahead of Mathias Guggenberger, who's tied with Alex Hansen of Norway. I think Hansen's getting a second run out of this, I really do. Next up, Don Parsons of Great Britain. Big week last week, and already started to be a big week this week for British bobsledding. And let's see if British Skeleton can rise to the challenge of the track. You can see Lizzie Yardled there filming at the top of the track, just by that Union flag. Didn't get a second run yesterday, and if she's ever missed the cut before in the World Cup, I don't recall it.
I also do not recall it, but that was a good start for Dominic, and he's getting ready on his Bromley kit. He works really closely with Kristen Bromley.
Well, only 19th fastest start, and that's a little bit of a problem still for Dom, is he's not got that pace that he used to have when he was a medal contender.
He had ankle surgery 2 years ago as well, and ever since that he's been really struggling to get that start back.
And his so far only World Cup medal in Calgary, bronze medal about 4 seasons ago. Now he's up to 15th spot, so he's driving better than his start, and this is another neat looking line. Again, looks like he's gone for a relatively conservative setup with lots of control, and at the line it's paid off. 14th. All right, not top 10, but he's going to make a second heat, I would think, from that.
And it is a little bit difficult being the 20th athlete off. You're really fighting hard against the track because it will be slowing down a little bit. The spritz is worn off, and he's just fighting against something he can't control.
Well, he's likely to make the cut. Dean Timmings is in 20th place, will be the first to be dropped. Height in 6.
tons of height and a little bump on the entry. A bit of a skid in the middle of that corner too, and as he comes off as well.
Yeah, that's 12-13, yeah, got the wrong angle there. So Don Parsons at the moment is in the field, as is everybody. 20 sleds down. It's Sunbin Jung and Korea who currently leads, but it's the bottom of the pile that is now the focus for everybody else. So 20 sleds down, only 20 go through. 10 starters still remain. First of them, Vladislav Marchenko, made his World Cup debut 2 races ago in Lake Placid. So the young Russian. Now, for everybody, it's bump somebody or you don't get a second go.
Yeah, we're kind of getting into that tricky time where you got to lay a run down to be able to get that second run.
We notice that the cloud is slipping down the mountain just as it did in your race yesterday, Liz. Did that change the way that the track ran, do you think?
It might make it a little bit frostier, but again, the track crew is really on top of it here, and they've been making a track in a rainforest for how long?
Yeah, there you go. 12 fastest start. He's definitely got the potential to make the cut.
He took a big hit, those 6-7, and again on that left wall right before corner 9.
And so far, he's batting 1 for 2.
Lots of height on the exit of 11 there.
Made the cut in Lake Placid, finished 11th. Didn't make the cut in Park City, finished 26th. And he's in 20th place at the moment, so he's slipping down the order. It's him or Dean Timmins of Australia. The Russian hits the wall, a huge skid, and he's in, and Timmins is out. So Riek Graf now goes to 20th place, but Marchenko unlikely to make the second heat. There's 9 more athletes to come, and he's only 2 off the drop. I think that got away from him pretty much right from the start, actually.
Yeah, right out of corner 1, he's already skidding, and he just skidded the entire way down the track. Some big hits, and he hasn't had too many runs here. So again, it's hard. Lots of height here on the exit of 7, massive flop. You can see the front of the sled jump, skid into corner 7. Again, more height on the exit of 7, a flop and a skid. Just hard time controlling his sled, and another tap there as well.
Always for new European athletes, these North American tracks are a bit more of a challenge because they don't grow up learning them. So when he gets back to Europe, I think he'll feel a little more in his comfort zone. What about Greg West? Watched the race yesterday and just spent most of the time going, I'm changing my plan for tomorrow. I'm changing my plan for tomorrow. So is he going wild and reckless like second run Jacqueline Learning, or is he gone conservative to make sure he can control the sled and make the second heat like first run Jacqueline Learning?
4.68. He lost 30 pounds this year, and he's come out with an incredible start. Now he's fighting to be the top 3 American sliders.
Right, neat and tidy run. He saw so many people hit the wall hard watching the race yesterday and lose speed that they didn't need to lose. I think he's gone on a conservative setup. He wants the control, he wants to avoid the walls and just get down fast.
I would definitely agree, seeing him drop 2 toes in corner 6 to just get a nice clean exit. He had a tiny bump, entered 7.
Well, only his 17th fastest start. He's 19th on the splits at the moment. 11, 12, 13 is pretty wild and drifting away from the top 20. And this is going to be another frustrating run for him. 19th in Lake Placid, 16th in Park City, not making the cut here. 21st place. Well, whatever the plan was, I'm afraid it was about a 10th shy of even temporarily making it into the cut.
He's going to be bummed about that run for sure. Lots of hits, lots of skids.
Well, smoked everybody in the US selection races. And unfortunately, it just seems to be that he has found a pause in the creativity and doesn't make the second heat.
Really hard for him. Drops that toe in the exit of corner 6, but it's a little bit too much, and he brushes on that slider's left-hand wall. Tiny skid on the entry of 7, dropping those toes to try to fix it as he hits the exit of 7.
And of course, when you've had a disappointing run, all those bumps, all those hits, you know, the elbow there against the wall, they all feel twice as painful, don't they?
Lots of height on the exit of 11 as he comes and taps that right-hand wall and sets up for the pain train.
So no second heat for Greg West. Next up is his teammate John Daly. So far, Matt Antoine is in the race for the USA. He is not up where he would hope to be. What can John Daly do? Spent a couple of weeks racing here last year when he was doing North America's Cup and ICC races to get points and experience to get back into World Cup racing when he decided to unretire. 4.68, same start as Greg West.
And he took a couple years off of sliding just to kind of fall in love with the sport. I mean, he still has great hair, and that came back along with his sliding, and now he's back on World Cup competing.
Well, he walked away, didn't he, broken-hearted after the games in Sochi, and then a couple of years later went, do you know what? I'm not done. I haven't got closure. I'm not done with it. I'm going to go back and give it one more shot. At the moment, he's not going to get a second run here, though, in Whistler. This has been brutal to him.
Sometimes in Whistler, you just get off your line and you can't stop taking hits, and it really sucks.
And it looks like he's got the opposite. Far too little control anywhere. And whatever he was hoping for, it wasn't that. A 54.94.
He's definitely going to be frustrated with that run. That is not what he wanted to lay down today.
Well, Greg West, 21st. John Daly, 23rd out of 23 sleds. Is the track starting to go away? Is the humidity getting to it? Or are we just seeing guys who haven't got it hooked up?
I think he just struggled with the height on the exit of a lot of these corners, a massive flop, and then he hits right before corner 7, which just sends him to the roof.
Yeah, skids out of 6, hits the wall on the right, sends him the wrong way into 7.
He saved that relatively good. It could have been on his shoulders, but it just makes into a massive skid and a massive hit.
Going sideways, backing it in is a way of slowing down a motorcycle. Does the same on ice here.
It's hard because you want to let the sled go for a certain amount, but you also need to control it too.
Well, next up is another athlete from a small nation, Vladislav Harishkevich. And you see, too many syllables again. It's like Greszczyszyn. I need more practice, Vladislav. I'm sorry. That's the 3rd week in a row I've mangled it. Didn't make the cut in Lake Placid. 13th finish, though, in Park City. Really good start to his World Cup campaign.
Yeah, that was awesome to see him last week. He's not the quickest starter, but he's really got a good feel for the tracks and for the driving. He's on a Dukurs sled.
19 years old, one of our youngest athletes. He's a boxer. He does mixed martial arts, power, sports, and skeleton as well. And he is, you know, like Greszczyszyn, he is a big unit, isn't he? And he's so young, he's only going to get stronger.
Exactly. And his dad is actually a strongman coach, so that's where they kind of get his strength and his power from. Yeah,
it's a team of 2, father and son. His dad here coaching him. He was the man with the sled. Vladislav just made the cut last week and then really rode up the run in the second heat, and everybody went, yeah, it's just weather. But he started 24th and he's now in 18th place. Little rub on the wall. He's going to take a place in the race, 53.73.
That was not a bad run by Vlad at all, and he should be pretty happy with that. Again, I think this is his first time to Whistler. Yep. And so to come there and have an 18th ranked run so far, really should be happy with that.
Off the 24th start to drive himself into 18th place, that's showing the sort of pace that he did in Park City last week. He's beaten John Daly and Greg West.
And we would never expect that. It comes a little bit early onto that curve, tiny bit of a skid and a little bit squirrely with that leg.
First scorpion kick we've seen all weekend as that leg gets thrown right over. I think he might just make the race. There's a good chance there. Next up is our second Canadian Grizzly Bear. This is Barrett Martineau. Barrett Bear Martineau, 19th in the World Cup rankings, 16th in Lake Placid. Missed the cut though in Park City, so he will be desperate to avoid that fate here.
Yeah, Barrett had kind of a bit of a rough summer. He had a bone fracture in his shin, so he's been really trying hard to get that start back, and it's not exactly where he'd want it to be. He just needs to relax into his sled and let the track do its thing. He's had tons of runs here, and he is quick here.
13th at the start, little flop off 6, but tidies up into 7. 17th place at the moment on the splits.
A little bit of a tap on that right side.
Good day for Canada yesterday in the women's skeleton. Jane Channel got the silver medal. In men's bobsleigh, a 1-2. Chris Spring ahead of Justin Cripps in the women's bobsleigh. Olympic champion Kaylee Humphries added her 6th win. Oh, in the 1-1. And drills the wall in the ditch as well. And that's him. Oh, that was going in the right direction. He was 16th, 17th maybe. 19th at the moment, so he bumps out Vladislav Marchenko of Russia. But oh boy.
Yeah, he took a hard hit in the roof of 16, and he's really frustrated with that. Just super late into 16 and hits the roof, comes back down.
Probably hit the wall in the bottom there as well, and then look, falls off the final part of Thunderbird, just slides down the aisle. That wasn't steering, that was gravity just dropping him into the wall at the bottom.
Yeah, which puts him into a little bit of a skid on the exit of 16. He's really going to be bummed about that.
So Jung Korea is the race leader from Nikita Tregibov. We have 25 sleds down, 5 more to go, hunting for a place in the race. Ashley Pittaway with the Union flag in support of teammate Jerry Rice. Jeremy. On the left in the black jacket is the head coach of the British skeleton operation, Andy Schmidt. And Jerry's had the better of the runs this season, 15th in Lake Placid, 24th in Parsons. He didn't make the second heat.
It's really cool to see both Jack and Jerry really coming up in the ranks, and now seeing them competing for those top 20 spots when really they didn't have too many people after Sochi.
Yeah, well, they've been traveling up the ladder together. It's been a Timon and Pumbaa of British skeleton. Oh, a little wild for Jerry.
A little bit of extra height on the exit of 7, which gave him that kind of odd flop.
Part of his problem here is the start was only a 472, 21st at the start, and it's drifting away.
Oh, a little bit again, that hit, which just gives you too much height.
Well, unless he knows his shortcut, he's not getting a second run here either, I'm afraid. So he is out of the race, and at the line, 21st spot. Well, 2.13 off, and 20th place is 1.91 off, so he was a couple of tenths away from where he needed to be, absolute minimum, and he'll be disappointed with that. But flying home to Europe, he'll be on more familiar territory.
Lots of height here on the exit of corner 7, and a big flop and hits and skids. That's a real big speed killer. Lots of height there, a bit of a scorpion. It's the second scorpion we've seen today.
So Jerry Rice doesn't get a second run at the moment. Wing Jiangung of China is in the drop zone. Next up is Amir and another one of the Martin Rettel coaching crew, and that made such a difference last year. He had a real standout season. There with the white scarf is his teammate Maria Montejano. Mirabel last year 13th in the overall World Cup rankings, made the cut at every race for the first time in his career.
That was really incredible to see Andrew competing and getting those top 20 results. It was really encouraging to see. He's on a Bromley sled, and between working with Martin Rettel and having that Bromley sled, he's really accelerating and showing that he is there to be in the top 20.
Well, he's a highly articulate slider, and he wears his passion very firmly on his sleeve. You always know if he's had a good run or a bad run. 26 at the start, a 482 getaway.
Again, he was here at the beginning of the season taking some extra runs and just getting familiar with this track without the pressure.
He wants to start the season making the cut everywhere and keep that confidence going from last year. Unfortunately missed out in Lake Placid, did make the heat in the second run in Park City. Is he going to do it here? 26 at the start, this is a good run. He's up to 18th. Needs to hold the exit of Thunderbird. He does, not a bad hit. 17th at the line, 17th. So he's in, and out goes Jung of China.
And you saw his coach Martin Rettel super excited for him, and Martin's great for being excited and ready to go.
And also, he, you know, as an athlete, gets the mental attitude is so important, and you know, keeping these guys in the right zone is where you're going to get the speed out of them.
And when they're enjoying themselves, you see a smile, and when they're having fun sliding, that's really when you do your best work. Fun is fast, and that's from Chris Spring. He's not the quickest on the start, but man, he can drive that sled. He drove it like he stole it, and he had an incredible run. Yeah,
really good news for Amir and He's in the field at the moment. I think he should stay there. Yeah, let's hope for a second run for him. That's what he was saying. Next up is another piece of awesome helmet art. This is Italy's Joe Cecchini, Calgary cop, and currently struggling hugely for fitness. He had a double hernia, so he's not had a chance to have that treated. He is basically hobbling around at the moment in terms of where his pace should be. Lacks nothing in enthusiasm and passion.
He's one of the most passionate athletes I think I've ever met, and as a person he is as well. He's working with Michaela Whitmer as his coach on these North American tracks, just to give him a little bit of confidence and have that home track knowledge.
And have somebody go to the team captains meetings and do all the paperwork and the stuff so he can focus on being him. Good start, 17th at the start, but it's already drifted away a little.
He had a lot of height on the exit of corner 4, which really kind of sent him a bit squirrely into corner 5.
Teammate Mattia Gaspari tore his Achilles in pre-season training a couple of days before the national selection trials. He's out for the year, so Joe is it as far as Italian skeleton is concerned.
And that's really hard to not have the teammates here. Michaela is his coach, is his teammate, and is the one supporting him. Yeah,
in fact, there are no Italian coaches here, so he will hopefully join up with them in Europe when we get there in a couple of weeks' time, when we start in Winterberg, Germany. Go to Winterberg and Eagles in Austria before Christmas. Joe knows that wasn't a run that's going to do him any favours. 55.05, 28th of our 28 sliders. How he got a 17th fastest start, I don't know, because he is far from healthy.
Lots of height there in corner 2, and it just drops him and then flops, and that's not what you want in that early on that track. It was...
Well, not too many major mistakes. Certainly looked less painful than some, but the pain of not making the second heat will remain. Athlete and sled being weighed, there are maxima and minima that you must meet, as well as all sorts of conditions on the size of the sled and the nature of the runners. 2 to go. Hiro Takahashi of Japan next up. New coach for the Japanese skeleton team this year, somebody who we saw competing regularly over the last few years, Kyle Tress or Greg West. I can never tell which is which.
They do look very similar, that's
Brothers
for sure.
from another mother, yeah.
Hiro is on a new Schneider sled this year, and he's starting to kind of feel it out and see what that new equipment is like.
He's been racing on Japanese sleds for the last few years, hasn't he? And the Schneider sled's got a very unique feel to it, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot stiffer than most sleds, but man, these sleds can fly.
All you got to do is learn how to drive it. Racing drivers do this all the time. They change championships, they get into a different manufacturer's car in the same series, and it handles totally differently. Sometimes you adapt the car to you, oftentimes you adapt you to the car much more, and that's the same with the sled.
Yeah, because you're not having a sled necessarily made exactly for you, unless you are Matthias Guggenberger, but it's up to you to kind of change your driving styles to have a sled that works for you.
22nd at the start, not going to make the cut. Oh, I don't know. Hang on a minute. He's gone from 26 up to 22nd, and just doesn't get in at the line.
He was a bit squirrely on the exit of corner 7, which just sent him a little bit all over the place as he went into corner 9.
A couple of seasons ago, the Japanese men were really on fire, and then it all just kind of drifted away. And a change of coach, change of sled. It's a bit of rebuilding, but annoyed with himself.
Definitely frustrated. Lots of height here on the exit of 7. It puts him on his bumpers and on his side. Hits again on the left and into a skid, and then another hit.
Gorgeous looking helmet from Hiro, but unfortunately not a matching run, so he doesn't make the cut. We have 1 left to go, trying to make it into the race, and at the moment it is either Canada's Barrett Martineau or the final slider, Switzerland's Ronald Odderset. Now, Ronald will have the speed at the start, but can he control it down the track? The mechanical engineer from Switzerland, always a quick starter, and at 5th fastest, 4:58, so that's what he needs, but he needs to hold that.
And a nice soft load onto the sled as well, and that's really good to see. Again, these Swiss athletes spent a bit of time here at the start of this season getting relaxed on this track.
You know when it comes as a big shock and a boogeyman to you, so it makes a lot of sense. 5th at the start, down to 13th on the splits already, and lots of scrapey, scratchy noises. Is that toes or helmet?
I think it was a bit of a mix of both.
And he's already dropped out of the race, 27th on the split times. He needs to have the bottom half of his life to make it into the cut.
And he just doesn't have the speed coming out of corner 11 at 122 kilometers.
That is a mere 83.5 miles an hour. And at the line, he is 28th of our 30 sliders. So Ronaldo set between Dean Timmings and John Daly. So he doesn't make the second heat. John Daly, 29th in a field of 30. Sentences I didn't think I'd get to say. There's one. So Ronaldo set joins the spectators trackside. And look at that, sled's just falling down the corner there. That wasn't a steer at all.
No, just really trying hard to control it prior to that, kind of falling out of the curve.
All right, so onwards and upwards, off to Europe, to tracks he knows better. And of course, we go to St. Moritz just after Christmas, his home ice. Well, the man who leads is the man who leads the World Cup standings, Sunbin of Korea, 4,400s ahead of anyone else. And it was a masterclass performance, looking every inch the man that he was in Park City a week ago. Sunbin barely made a steer, Liz, or at least that's what it looks like.
Yeah, it looked really natural, and that's what you want to see. The athletes not moving a lot, but being able to steer the sled pretty aggressively when needed.
Too little, but in the right places. Sunbin is the leader. Nikita Chegabov in the silver medal position. Dave Greszczyszyn of Canada in the bronze, ahead of Matt Antoine, Alex Gassner and Christopher Groves here, tying with Thomas Dukurs. Martins Dukurs in 8th position, ahead of Reese Thornberry and Matthias Guggenberger. So some of the usual faces up at the top, but look at that, Alex Hansen, Reese Thornberry way up there as well. We've got a few surprises in store for the second heat. Barrett Martineau will be first off, and from Gang of China down to Cecchini of Italy, the remaining 10 athletes will join the fans trackside for our second heat. Join us too, please, as well, in just under 25 minutes, 11:30 Pacific, as we get the second and deciding heat underway here in Whistler. Till then, for Liz Varche, the IBSF TV crew, I'm Martin Haven saying thank you for being with us. We'll be back shortly to see who's going to take the gold here in Whistler.
Trying to get those legs together.